everyone, and welcome to another episode of Los Banos Talk. My name is Justin Collins, and today we have a very special guest, Kevin Cookingham, who is running for our district here for Congress. And so, without further ado, I'm going to allow him to introduce himself.
Well, thank you, Justin. It's an honor to be here, and I'll give you a little background to my life so people get to know a little bit about who I am and why I'm running for the 16th Congressional District. I grew up in Clovis area, went to Clovis schools. On 6 acres, we had just a few vines that we made into raisins. And then I raised every kind of animal from day-old calves to goats, to chickens, to turkeys, to chuckers, to guinea hens and everything else. And just had a great time growing up because I love animals. And so that's how I grew up, and raised pigs through high school, and was an athlete, played football and middle linebacker, and then also a wrestler, and graduated from Clovis High in '76. Went on to college, went to a few different colleges, wrestled at UCLA for 1 year until my shoulder gave out, and then ended up graduating from Fresno State. And then did 35 years of work for others. And so 10 of those years were with Youth for Christ and Hume Lake Christian Camp. So 5 years at Youth for Christ, which basically represented Madera and Fresno city and counties. And then Hume Lake Christian Camps, where people come from all over, actually all over the world, people come to Hume Lake, but mostly within California. And so I did that for 5 years. I was the director of programs for about 48,000 campers a year. And we developed programs all over the world in Papua New Guinea and Numenoi and Ukarumpa, New Guinea, and as well as places like Chiang Mai, Thailand, and Costa Rica and other places. So it was a great opportunity, but also I spent 25 years in education. And so I was spent most of that time in an administrative role. The last 7 years were with Clovis Adult School, where I was the principal, and Clovis Online School, where I was the principal at the same time. So I was the principal of 2 different schools, and they did extremely well. And one of the things that I love about Clovis Adult School specifically is we worked with career tech education programs, where we took people from very low economic areas, found them grants so they wouldn't have to pay them back, and got them into our programs. They took the state test, passed, and then got them into the workforce. And so we're had about a 99% success rate in the health program there. And so we were excited about that. And then I retired when I was 60 because I felt like something was happening in my life. My wife and I prayed about it, and we just felt like there was something going on. And I went to a mentor of mine and I said, I just feel like I want to help somebody get elected into Congress or some sort of role, because we need to have more people that are grateful for this country, that are a bit more patriotic, less socialistic, and so forth. And I said, I'd like to help somebody run for Congress or the state assembly or state senate. And the more we thought about it, and the more my wife and I prayed about it, we felt that I was the one that was supposed to do this. So I declared that I'd be running against Jim Costa for the 16th Congressional District in, it was when I turned 61, April 24th, when I turned 61. I'm 62 now. So we've been in this race for about a year and a half. And just have the most wonderful people in this valley. And just so you know, the 16th district includes Fresno County, Madera County, which is Madera, Chowchilla, and then Merced County, which is, of course, Merced, Atwater, Gustine, Livingston. There's about 12 cities. And then it goes west to where you're at, Los Banos and Dos Palos. And so it's a large area, a very agricultural area, but wonderful, wonderful people in this valley. So that's what I'm doing.
Great, thank you. That actually kind of goes into basically my next question. My next question I was going to ask you is, so Jim Costa has been the incumbent in Congress for a long time. He's represented this congressional district for, I think, the last 22 years, if I'm not mistaken. Do you feel that there is a need for change, and what kind of change would you bring?
Yeah. So I would just say this: Jim got into the state assembly in 1978. So he was in the assembly before I even graduated from college in '81. And so he's really been around in state and federal government for right at 40 years now. There was a little break in between of a couple years, but almost 40 years. And I have yet to meet anyone that thinks a person should be in politics for 40 years. I just don't hear it. And I know in my life, I can get stale after a few years at a job. And I never want to leave a job where people are going, okay, he's kind of burned out, that sort of thing. So I always want to leave where people want more. People want, things are moving forward. We're being successful. We're growing. We're seeing good things happen. And I just feel that after 40 years, a person, we need to get somebody else with new ideas, new thoughts, and a zest, and somebody that you can look at their record in the past of other things they've done and say, were they successful? Was he successful at Clovis Adult? How about Clovis Online? How about the other programs he was involved with at Hume Lake or Youth for Christ? If there's a history of success, you can pretty well know that I'm in this for one reason. I want to see success in this valley. And we can talk about what that means. That may be another one of your questions. But my feeling is that we need new representation in this 16th district. And I'm going to be honest with you, as I go up and down this, I live in Madera now. And I live in Madera for a reason. I can get to Fresno really quick in about 12 minutes, and I can get right on 99 in about 12 minutes. So I can get to Merced and on out to Los Banos very quick. Actually, I like to go down 12 and head out through Fireball. I love that country area, and head out to Gus Palace and Los Banos. But the people are just such good people here. And I'm hearing from them that they feel neglected. The people in Los Banos feel like, man, nobody's coming and seeing and looking at the needs we have. And I think the reason why is because most politicians try to focus on areas where most of the votes are coming from. And Fresno has about 65% of the votes. But it's my commitment to represent everybody in the 16th district. And that means every small city, whether it's Planada, La Grande, Los Banos, Dos Palace, Livingston, it doesn't matter, Gusting. We've got people all over the place that are a part of this campaign. And my commitment to them is that I want to support them in their needs.
No, that's something I'm really appreciative that you were willing to come on the show and talk to us here in Los Banos. We are considered, fairly small city. And a lot of times we feel like our needs are not heard, but we are important. We matter too. And I like to hear that someone is interested in us as well and wants to represent all of us and not just Fresno, because a lot of us feel like everyone only cares about Fresno and then doesn't even really campaign where we live or talk to us or ask about our needs. And it really concerns us. It really bothers us. So that's
absolutely good. And by the way, I will tell you, for the primaries, we won Merced County, which includes Los Banos. We won Madera, but we did not win Fresno. And Jim Costa won Fresno, and that's why he puts all his effort there. And I'm hoping that we get enough votes in Los Banos and other areas to offset the group of Fresno that tend to vote for him, usually just on name recognition alone. And so, Los Banos to me growing up was always a place you stop and get some food or go to the bathroom on your way to the Bay Area or San Jose. But I'll tell you, in this last 18 months, I have been to Los Banos so many times, and I absolutely love the people there. I've been in the parades there. I've been to the Tomato Fest there. I talked to business people there. I talked to farmers there. I talked to duck clubs people there. They're just wonderful people. And so I would really love to play a role in just helping Dos Palace and Los Banos any way I can.
Yeah, no, I mean, our city's really changed in the last 10 years even. Our population's grown significantly.
Yes.
Now we're over 43,000 in population, and it's still climbing. There's been new businesses that have come in, and it's really growing. A lot of people have moved in from the Bay Area. And so, I mean, to make a long story short, the Los Banos today is not even the Los Banos 10 years ago, and certainly not the Los Banos 20 years ago.
Yep.
But thank you for recognizing that. So my next question is in regards to agriculture. So agriculture is still our largest part of our economy. It's still where most of our GDP in our district comes from. So my question is essentially, what would you do to try to protect farmers' interests?
Yeah. You know how probably the best way to explain this is if you took a circle and you had a focus of three key focuses that I have, but it doesn't mean I leave everything else out, but three key focuses in my first term as a congressman. One would be law enforcement. Okay, so that's one part of that, because I believe that our law enforcement are not respected and so forth. The second part would be agriculture that I'll talk about more in just a minute, because agriculture, in my opinion, it is a national resource here, that we have the best farmland in the world, and we've got people in Sacramento that are taking away our ability to produce by restricting water and letting it go out to the ocean. And I think that's just insane. And so agriculture will be number two, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And then the third is small businesses. I think our small businesses have taken a horrible hit, especially with this COVID, and many are failing, not due to anything that they've done, but 100% due to overreach from the government. And so this really bothers me. So those are three key areas, but let's go back to agriculture, because that's what you really asked about. But those are kind of three key areas. I have always been involved in agriculture. I love agriculture. I think every kid, if I had a choice, I wish every kid could raise a day-old calf. I mean, they need to know how to raise chickens and day-old calves and other animals. It teaches them responsibility. And we produce, and you probably know this already, 50 to 55% in California of all nuts, fruits, and vegetables for the entire nation. That's incredible. And to know that we have that kind of productivity for the entire nation is an amazing thing. And the last thing I ever want is to be having to import my peaches or anything else from China or Indonesia or anything like that. I want our farmers right here in this valley, especially, to be producing. And my son-in-law, by the way, is a farmer in Kingsbury. He farms stone fruit. And when I went and met with the Merced County Farm Bureau, there were probably about 30 people there. And they just said over and over again, please play a role in helping us with the water issues and the regulation and all the different things going on that are hurting our farmers. There was one farmer, and I can't remember his name, and I wouldn't say it anyway, where he had 200 acres of crop plowed under because it had just a hair more THC, because he was growing hemp, than was allowed. And they just came in and destroyed 200 acres of his crop instead of saying, let's work this out, let's figure this out. And so those are the kind of things that really bother me. We have had $30 billion worth of water bonds on the ballot since 2000. So think about that. In the last 20 years, $30 billion. And what they do in Sacramento is they write these bonds up so it looks like we're going to build new dams. But the way they're written is deceiving. And so people vote, yes, we need water, boom, and they sign off on it. And then what they do is it goes out to all these agencies and all these bureaucracies, and very little gets done. And then they say, well, we've got 175 billion for Temperance Flat. Well, of course, it costs 3 to 4 billion to build a dam. It'd be like me saying to you, Justin, hey, Justin, I tell you what, I'm going to build you a brand new house. And you went, all right, Cookingham's going to build me a new house. And I said, here's $100. And you said, well, wait a minute. That doesn't even pay for permits. That doesn't even pay for any paperwork. And that's what they do with the dams. And so, and by the way, you have a farmer right there in Los Banos area that told me he has 7 million acre feet of water that's being stored. They call it water banking underground that he says he could pump right now, but he can't get permits to pump. And so there are a lot of different parts of this, but I will tell you this, my commitment is not going to politicians first to find out what we need to do and push. We need to go to the farmers first. That's who we go to and say, okay, what are your specific needs? Because I can't know everything. So I have to have people, for instance, I have some water people that I rely on extensively to say, okay, what are the new things I need to know about? Where are the worst subsidence issues where our ground is sinking and so forth. And so they help me out a lot. But we talk to the farmers first, and after talking to the farmers, we then find out what we need to do. But the big part of this, though, and this sounds very basic, we've got to vote the people out of Sacramento. Those are the people that are destroying this state. And I could go over many things with that. So my commitment in Congress, since Congress is a federal position, it's to, once I get in there, to help other conservatives win the state assembly in California and the state Senate in California, and any positions of power or any positions that can determine who are on committees that deal with water. And so that's a huge thing. I would love to see a bunch of retired farmers that have their sons that are now in their 30s that can handle things run for office. I would love to see that, because who we vote for impacts everything in our lives, everything. And so we have to take that seriously. And so I would say that is my focus. Focus on farmers, talk to the experts, and the experts are the farmers, and develop the plans based on that. But we definitely need more water, and we mix federal. Trump's been here 3 times working with water. He's putting money toward this, and our governor is saying no. In fact, he just denied money to help with the Frying Kern Canal because it's sinking. And he said, well, we're not going to do it till we have a whole comprehensive plan for everything. Well, that's like me saying I'm building a neighborhood and no one can move in until every single house is completed and all yards done. That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. Start somewhere, and let's start helping these farmers, and let's start helping the water issue.
Yeah, I think to follow up specifically, there was a couple issues I wanted to bring up more specific, but you kind of touched on them. I believe you're referring to the executive order that Trump signed that diverted, I think, some water from, like, it was trying to protect a particular type of fish. I think it was salmon or trout or something like that. He signed an executive order that released some of that water to the farmers here. And I actually remember seeing an electronic billboard basically saying, "Thank you, Trump, for the water." And then, and I knew what that was referring to. And it was kind of interesting that he did that. I mean, a lot of people aren't aware that the EPA, being a federal agency, the president has a lot of authority over environmental regulation.
Right.
And so it's feasible for him to sometimes intervene in that way.
They can barely even find a Delta smelt now, right? They did a bunch of things to kind of help with the Delta smelt. I looked at the last 2 years where they've trolled around and tried to find Delta smelt so they can study them. And so obviously what they've been doing in the past hasn't worked. And the new biological opinions were put together by state and federal scientists. And then Jim Costa threw his support behind Becerra to sue the federal government on the new biological opinions. Well, you're just stabbing our farmers in the back when you do that.
I think the other things that I'm noticing specifically really for Los Banos, but also for the surrounding area, is one of the things that kind of built up this town and is still part of it is dairy. And there's a lot of regulations in regarding to, like, methane emissions.
Mm-hmm.
That has basically regulated a lot of these guys out of businesses. It's basically kind of pushed the cost to do business and to do dairy farming too much to where they're kind of moving out of the valley. There's some people who think that perhaps there's kind of this growing movement to sort of vilify, I guess you could say, farmers from an environmental standpoint in order to maybe kind of push them out, because there's an idea that generally they lean conservative and that maybe this is really political. I don't know if that's really true or not, but sometimes that does seem to be how it sometimes appears, because while there's environmental regulations that could be said about everything, it seems like there's a lot of focus lately on regulating farmers specifically, as opposed to industry or manufacturing. It's like they want to focus a lot on farmers. And that's troubling to me, I think.
Yeah, I know a number of farmers. In fact, I know one group of farmers that hire 3 full-time people to do nothing but deal with regulation. That's all they do. They have 3 full-time people working all year long, and all they do is try to keep them compliant with regulation. That's just wrong. I know a number of dairy farmers that have moved out of state. They just said, we can't take this anymore. And they've moved to other states. And that's a sad thing, because raising young calves when I was a kid, I love the dairy industry just because I love animals. I love cattle and everything else. And they've just got it down to a science now. And so that's a real concern of mine as well. Now, I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but just over-regulation is a big problem all the way around.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I get frustrated with it is that if the overall intention is to improve the health of the environment in the world, in my opinion, it doesn't seem to really solve that issue, because what happens is you push them just to go somewhere else. Yeah. And then they'll just go to another state and do the same practice. But really all you did was lose the jobs here, but the end result is the same. And it's just happening somewhere else now.
Yeah, and by the way, the fixes that they put on the farmers are so expensive, they have to move. They can't move. I just talked to a dairy farmer, I won't tell you where, but just recently, and they want him to do this huge thing that's going to cost literally millions of dollars. Well, I don't know that he has millions of dollars to do that. I didn't ask him, but the regulation gets so expensive, they just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, there's propositions on the ballot. like Prop 15. I mean, that could potentially affect them. That could raise their rates. And so, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things coming down the line that could make it even more expensive. But we are seeing a slow loss
Yes.
agriculture here. I'm seeing dairies shut down. I'm seeing farms shut down, and that's sad to see. But I am seeing it, and so I'm glad that you're taking that seriously and trying to address that, because it is Los Banos is, I believe, as of now, the #1 producer of tomatoes. I think
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay.
we produce a lot of tomatoes. I can tell you that. Morningstar and Inglemoor are big business here, and a lot of people are employed by that. And then we have a dairy plant as well in the city. But agriculture is a big part of our business, so I'm glad that that's something that you take seriously. One thing that you brought up, though, which I was actually really interested that you said, was actually crime, because right now in Los Banos, as of now, we've had 51 homicides this year, and crime is horrible right now. It is, I mean, we are like losing it, really. We're just kind of upset. We're having a serious gang problem. We're really overwhelmed. We're understaffed with officers. We can barely keep up with the problem, honestly, and it's very concerning to a lot of us. And then there's political rhetoric, out and about like defunding the police and stuff. And we're in the opposite situation where we really need to increase funds, really, at this point, to the police. And so that was something interesting that you brought up about crime. I would like to hear a little bit more about that, specifically what you were referring to with crime, if maybe some of that could help us in any way.
Yeah, couple things. First of all, let me just take a little bit off of agriculture. I go to meetings quite often. They've stopped for a while now because of COVID, but that are all farmers, and they bring in a district attorney that deals with crime specifically with farmers. And they said crime is absolutely rampant on farms as well. You're talking about Los Banos City, but it's also rampant on farms where they're stealing chemicals, they're stealing tractors. I just had a relative of mine that is a stone fruit farmer, and they tried to steal his tractor. And they found needles on the ground and all kinds of things. And I'm just thinking, my word. And they said about 95% it has to do with drug issues. People are hooked on meth or whatever may be, fentanyl, and they're stealing anything they can. This carries over, of course, to our cities. And I never honestly thought I'd see the day where elected officials would justify looting, justify burning down buildings, justify beating up people, justify blocks, these kinds of things. And I will tell you, these cities that are, I'm going to say, anti-law enforcement, if nothing else, they're doing nothing to support law enforcement. And these cities like Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, New York, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, I could keep going on and on. And then when they start pulling police back and saying, oh, we're just going to do this ourselves, we're going to have community forces handle this, and crime skyrockets in Minneapolis, then you got the city council going, well, that's a surprise to us. Why did crime skyrocket? I'm thinking, you dumb nut. Why do you think? Because you demonized all police. You're pulling them back. You don't give them any power to do their jobs. And so naturally, we used to have a saying in Clovis, if it's not monitored, it's optional. Well, guess what? If people get arrested and get let out again, it empowers them to do the same thing over again, and it empowers more people to come and be idiots, destroying other people's property. So obviously, I feel very strongly about this. I am very upset at the way this has been handled. I saw a headline the other day that said, Trump lied that all large cities that are having these riots are Democrat. And I thought, well, I'm going to read that article. So I read it down. And when it got to the end, they'd done a study on the top 20 cities that did the $2 billion of damage. And they said he lied because only 19 were run by Democrats. One was by an independent. So therefore they said he lied because one was run by an independent. I will tell you this, we have to get this under control, and we have to take a strong stand. But the issue is this, and I went on 20 hours of ride-alongs with our officers. Their hands are tied because of Prop 47, 57, and 109. And they said, we just can't do the things we used to do. I went to the rescue mission, and the head of the rescue mission said, we got all kinds of beds available. You don't need to have all this homelessness out here. We've got food, we've got beds, we've got showers. But before Prop 47, a judge could say to these people, you either go to jail or you go to the rescue mission. And they pick the rescue mission. Now they don't even have power to do that. So we see trash all over the place. You go up and down 41, 99, 168, 180. It looks horrible. So I would say this. I would try to work personally with the federal government to see if they can partner up with local law enforcement and say, let's get this taken care of. We are going to do stings throughout Los Banos. We want to get rid of these people. And I will tell you another thing. The people of Los Banos need to stand up. And when they see people committing crimes, turn them in. Get rid of them. They need to be gone, because you deserve safety in your community. Your children deserve safety in your community. And that's just, I feel so strongly on that. I sound like I'm preaching right now, but it just really bothers me that people don't support police. And one other thing I will say about that, we've been taught all our lives, don't make a generalization about a group from a few people, right? Well, they're taking a very few cases where police have used excessive force, and they're generalizing it to all police. Look, there's a few bad police, but there's very few, I believe. Might be 1 or 2%. Just like I come from education, there are some bad teachers. There are some bad doctors. There are some bad whatever in every field. So let's deal with that. Don't make a generalization about all our law enforcement, because I'm telling you something, these people are good people, and I've worked with them, I've been around them, and anytime there's a Support the Blue rally, I am there.
Thank you very much for that answer. I'm not asking you to promise this or anything like that, but one of the things that we've talked about at a local level is in our debate for mayor. And on both sides, the biggest thing is lately has been public safety, because like I said, our homicide has gone up significantly. I mean, significantly. It's one of the worst it's been in like 20 years.
Right.
But that being said, part of the problem is where Los Banos is located. They say we're the crossroads of California. We're at 152, and then you can also get to 99 pretty quick, and then I-5 is near us. And to make a long story short, a lot of drug trafficking comes through here. This is kind of a centralized location where the cartels like to use Los Banos as a place to basically do the stocking, shipping, moving, and distribution of the drugs. And so some of us have been wondering, perhaps we could get some help from the federal government, because our local law enforcement, we only have 40 something sworn officers.
Yeah.
Really just can't handle it. And then the county can't really handle it either. And we're right now cooperating with the county, and we're trying to get help from the state. But if maybe the DEA could step in and help us, because I mean, we're dealing with international cartels.
Yeah.
We have a small local law enforcement police force. It's just really kind of outside of our capabilities and outside of our tax funding to really handle. And we really could use some federal help.
And I would certainly push for that. I absolutely would. And hopefully we get it. President Trump during these riots has said numerous times, let me know and we'll send in federal forces to help you. And a lot of these cities rejected. I don't know why we couldn't get that same federal help for epidemic crime related to drug issues, and whether it's the DEA or whoever they may be. And so they could work hand in hand with the local police, and I think we could see a lot of great results.
Great, excellent. I was going to ask you, what sorts of projects are you interested in working on? What sorts of ideas, proposals, plans, or just general priorities you have to try to bring toward to help us here in the Central Valley?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with things where I don't need a vote from Congress, and those things that I can do right when I'm voted in. And the first thing is jobs, because that's my forte. I talked to you about how I was principal of Clovis Adult School with a 99% success rate. So I would work on getting people positioned for success by getting them training they need, free, by the way, in a career tech education program. For instance, in the next couple of years, they need 400,000 welders across this nation. There's a huge need for people that are specialists in, that are electrical, plumbers, HVAC, cement people, and on and on. And these are all skills that can be taught in CTE classes at community colleges, adult schools, in the health field. We had people that came in and became licensed vocational nurses and made a very good living. And then if they went one extra year, they were a registered nurse. And so at a community college or at Fresno State. So we can do these same things throughout the Fresno, Madera, and Merced County areas, including Los Banos, because when we were experiencing across this nation a 3.5% unemployment rate, which is the envy of the world before the pandemic, at that time, the unemployment rate in the 16th district was 16.9%. We are one of the poorest areas in the entire nation. That can change by positioning people for success. And many of these CTE programs are only 6 weeks long. Some are 2-3 months, some are a year and a half, but most of them are less than 2 years. And most of them you get pretty much free through community colleges and adult schools. So this is a thing we can carry out throughout the whole district. And I don't have to get one vote in Congress to do it. My commitment is to the 16th district. And that's the first thing. The second thing that I can do without any vote through Congress, we got to get everybody together and start cleaning up this place. You know, one of the things we did in education, if somebody tagged something like at our school, it was painted by about 6 a.m. The next morning, because we didn't want to have our campus look like trash. We wanted people to take pride in their campus. And the last thing they need is to walk onto a campus and go, gee, my knee, this is terrible around here. Well, you know what? As I go throughout the 16th district, there are some horrible areas we need to clean up. I don't need a vote in Congress to do that. I can do that right now. Now, as far as specific things coming through the federal government, I'll tell you right now, one of the key areas is going to be what I mentioned before, working with the federal government with law enforcement, working with the federal government with water, because, you know, as you know, water is federally controlled, state controlled, and locally controlled. But I'm going to try to max out everything that the federal government does for water. And I will tell you this, I spoke to 2 experts last week, and I've been trying to get an answer for this on a long time. And they said both Temperance Flat and Sites are federal lands, not state lands. They said it's almost all federal land. So why couldn't the federal government come in there? By the way, Trump has Devin Nunes has Trump's ear. He knows him real well. He's a friend. He's an ally. Between Devin Nunes, Valadeo, and myself, we put pressure on and say, why doesn't the federal government take over those dams? Let's do it. Let's get it done. It's federal land. It's mostly federal land. So that's another thing that I would do. I've had a lot of people, I need to talk to more businesses about this, but I've had a lot of people in Los Banos say, man, we need to have a thoroughfare that kind of goes around the town where we can get through really quickly. The concern I have with that, I could see that, I could see why people would want that. What does that mean for our businesses then, though? You know, if that did happen, I'd want to have easy access so that they could still go through and buy food and buy supplies and have their needs met through the city of Los Banos. I've seen some areas totally shut down because the freeways have bypassed them. And I don't want to see that for the citizens of Los Banos. So where's the balance in all that? Well, I gotta sit down with a lot of people in Los Banos, because you guys are the experts on Los Banos, and say, okay, give me the pros and cons, because this is what I'm hearing. And you got to tell me what I'm fighting for, because I'm here to represent you.
Oh man, I can tell you that you're talking about the Complete Streets 2040 project, and that is a whole other can of worms that
I heard.
Controversial as the day is long, and we could talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
But needless to say, yes, that is part of the idea, is doing a bypass. The other idea is to do a scenic route, and then the other part is just do nothing, or just simply improve the highway. There's multiple ideas, but ultimately we don't really have the money really for any of the ideas. Right. And so if the federal government was to be involved, it would probably be in that way, maybe securing some kind of federal highway fund, I suppose. But yeah, that's where we're at, and it's very controversial. Some people hate it, some people love it. It's really not fully.
Yeah, I knew after about my first 2 or 3 people I talked to, it'd be very controversial. So
absolutely, but I'm glad that you have the willingness, though, to tackle it and talk about it, because something frustrates me when politicians want to run away from some kind of controversial issue, because it's like, well, that's what you're running to do, is to talk about and make hard decisions. And if you're afraid to upset certain people, then you're not going to be an effective leader. So I'm glad to hear that you are willing to do that. And I'm glad to hear that it sounds like you know a thing or two about Los Banos politics, because unless you're from here, I mean, or talk to people here, you would not know about that bypass plan.
Well, I've been there many times in the last year and a half, and I've talked to a lot of great people, but I am getting a number of different opinions. So yeah.
Thank you for that. So my next question is really in regards to federal level politics, and I guess we could say partisan politics. So we don't know who's going to win the presidential election. Trump could win re-election, or maybe Joe Biden wins the election. But essentially, my question for you is, how would you represent us in Congress? Would you work with Trump to enact his agenda? Would you oppose aspects or parts of his agenda? Would you work with Joe Biden if he was president and enacting some of his agenda, or would you oppose large parts of an agenda? And don't take this question as an all or none type thing.
Right.
Just
Right.
I'm basically just kind of asking, how would you work with the current candidates that are running, regardless of who wins?
Right. Uh, years ago, I heard stories about when Newt Gingrich was in Congress and so forth, that they would have these knockdown, drag out fights in Congress, arguing different bills and so forth. But at the end of the day, they'd go have a drink together and just have a good time talking with each other. That's not what's happening today. The verbiage, I would say verbal bile is what I'd say, coming out of people's mouths is just terrible. How can I have a good time just talking to you if I'm calling you a filthy liar, or whatever it may be? And it's going on both sides, to be honest with you. It's both sides. And so but I have to work across the aisle. If Joe Biden got in there, I would have to work across the aisle, or I will get nothing for Los Banos, right? And so I have to do whatever I can to work with people, and it may mean that I hold my nose and sign something because there's parts of it I hate, right? But it will help my 16th district. So I would just say my commitment is to be civil with people. I think one of the best things I can do when I get to Congress is to just don't go out with a group. Go out with individuals that are on from the other side, just an individual at a time. Take them to lunch, take them to get dinner, and just say, hey, let's just talk, get to know each other, not get in a fight. There's no cameras here where we have to, act tough or anything like that, and just get to know them and see how we can bridge some of those gaps. I don't want to sound too religious here or Christian here, but I know that when the Bible talks about Jesus, it says he grew in favor with both God and man. So really, we have to stand for our values, but at the same time, we don't need to be idiots about it, right? I remember when I was in charge of discipline for 5 years at Clovis High School. And I mean, I had crazy stuff happen. And Clovis, I think, is a wonderful school. But if I had to suspend a kid, or I had to search a kid, or whatever it was with our officer, I was never mean to them. You don't need to be mean. I would talk to them and say, man, I'm sorry this happened. And I want you to know something. I believe in you, and I have to suspend you, or I have to send you to an alternative school, or I have to cite you, have our officer cite you. But I want you back in our school someday. I want you to graduate from our school. And it was really good, because I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 people that probably still hate me. But most kids, in fact, I have 2 volunteers on my staff right now that were kids that I kicked out of school before. And it's because, and if you take that philosophy to Congress, we don't need to be idiots about what we believe. We don't need to call people liars. That doesn't solve anything. But we do need to get together and say, where can we come together on some issues and work at it that rate?
Thank you for that answer. I agree. I mean, so for me, I mean, one of the problems is I get frustrated with the hyperpartisanship that's happened nowadays, and that there seems to be a lack of civility. I was watching the presidential debate last night, and I just kind of felt frustrated, really, with both sides. Frankly, I just felt like nothing was really being discussed, and it
Right.
became very petty. And I think a lot of other people agree. But the reality is that if you win this election, that you would likely go into a Congress where you would be in the minority party, because currently now Democrats hold the majority of the seats in the House, and so you would have to work with Nancy Pelosi essentially. And then as time goes on, perhaps that makeup could change. You might still be there, and then Republicans are in charge, or a different president. But yes, you have to be able to work with everyone to an extent. It's not to say that you have no principles or no ideology per se, but there needs to be a willingness to cooperate with other people and to put the ideas before the team, I guess you could say, kind of thing sometimes. And so it's nice to hear that you have that willingness to do so, because that's kind of been a criticism some people have had lately of Jim Costa, is they feel like sometimes he does what Nancy Pelosi wants him to do, even if it conflicts with what we as our district would like him to do. And
Right.
sometimes we feel like it's too much focused on the, I guess what we're worried about is going off to Congress and then getting into the federal level politics too much and then forgetting about the district. Because
Right.
that's a lot of how we feel like it's kind of what's happened.
Yeah, it
And
is. It's happened across the nation.
yeah,
Across the nation, yeah. And I too watched the debate last night. I'm going to be honest with you. I literally had a pit in my stomach after about 5, 6 minutes for the rest of the debate. To be honest with you, it was very discouraging.
it was. And I hope that going forward, maybe it improves. But a lot of people were disappointed on both sides. I
Yeah,
don't think anybody was really happy with it. But
right, right.
I'm glad to hear that you're trying to avoid that kind of partisanship and bring some civility and represent us in a more civil manner. So my last question is essentially, is there anything else that you would like to tell the voters? Anything else that you would like to tell us about yourself, or give us any reason as to why we should vote for you, why we should give you our vote?
Yeah, I would just say this. Years ago, I read a book called Halftime. And this book was written by a very successful man who was very wealthy. And when he was 40, his son was swimming across a river and tragically drowned. He was 19 years old, tragically drowned in this river. And this guy wrote the book and he thought, if I live to be 80, which is kind of an average, for people, he said, I'm at halftime in my life. That's why he called the book Halftime. And he said, I want to move from success. He had great success in business to significance. I could have very easily, after leaving Clovis Unified, just retire, kind of go, then I would have had the easy life, to be honest with you. Spend more time with my grandkids, spend more time with my lovely wife. We've been married for 35 years, but I felt like I have so much more fight left in me. And that's why I'm doing this, because I truly do want to have a huge impact on this valley. And I just feel that all my life, I have been a person that is very results oriented. I don't sleep at night if I don't see results. That's the kind of person I am. So many times we see people get in politics and they think it's cool to have the name congressman next to their name, or assemblyman or senator. That absolutely means nothing to me. What means something to me is to be able to finish strong in this life for God and for man, and to provide wins, to be successful in whatever I'm doing for the 16th district, whether it is jobs, whether it is fighting too much government overreach, whether it's cleaning up this area, whether it's getting money to this valley. It's supporting the good people of the 16th district. So if there's one thing I'd like to leave with your listeners, I'm results oriented and I'm sold out to the people of the 16th district. And if they vote for me, they can know that I will be giving 100% of the time for the 16th district.
Great. Thank you very much. And if you have any other questions for Kevin or his campaign, in the description of this video, we'll have the email address, the phone number for the campaign, as well as a link to the Facebook page and the website, so you can follow that for more information and read it yourself. And if you haven't already, please like, follow, and subscribe to Los Banos Talk. My name is Justin Collins, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.